What is a seemingly harmless parenting mistake that will majorly frick up a child later in life? This is serious. I carry deep regrets over this. My kids were really wounded by my failing to properly memorialize the deaths of their sisters. We had two normal kids. Then my wife was pregnant and gave birth to two babies as a very late-term miscarriage. I held them, and they were small babies. Charity's birthday is in 2 days. Hannah was born on October 10th. We thought we did all the right things. We took their cremains and, with our children, put one into the sea and another into a friend's lake. We talked about the loss occasionally, but we didn't do a lot of things we could have done. Christmas ornaments for them, that sort of tangible stuff that kids can grasp. As it turns out, both of them grieved those losses deeply. They were 4 and 5, and we thought they barely understood it. But we were wrong, and it really wounded them, and they exploded with anger and hurt at us a couple of years ago. We handled it well, we got counseling, we apologized, we started correcting course. Right now, neither of them really speak to us. They cannot seem to forgive us for that oversight of not properly memorializing their sisters, and it's tearing us apart. We were so close, and now they are so distant and act so incredibly injured over this. And I'm in a profession in an associated area, and so is my wife. We can't even grasp the depths of this loss from a professional, let alone personal perspective. So include your kids in on these sort of hurts and losses. That's my deepest regret as a parent. Thanks for all the comments. I mean that. Since it's just a couple of days until Charity's birthday, she would have been 16. So my wife and I are pretty sad right now, especially since we want to be responding to our kids, 19 and 21, away at college, criticism of our past neglect. But now they won't allow that to happen, which is frustrating. On Thursday, I'm going to have flowers delivered to my daughter that tell her I love her and that it's okay to be sad today. I don't know exactly what I'm sending my son, but I'll figure something out with a similar message. And my wife will get flowers and a lot of hugs. Part of what I've learned from this and some of your comments have helped me understand it more deeply. Love and loss go together. You can't separate them, no matter what. Subtle pressures to follow societal expectations. I've had the fortunate experience to have some of the most amazing parents life could bring, and they never forced me to follow any particular path in life. They made it clear that I am who I am and that there is nothing wrong with it. I was never told to be a man or that's a little girly or anything of the sort. And now I have an amazing relationship with them and very content in my current path to be an aerospace engineer. Also, lack of respect or privacy. Obviously, as a kid, they had to put their foot down many times, but overall, if I had an issue with the way they approached something, they taught me to go to them and discuss the issue civilly. That gave me the tools to handle many situations where I am interacting with someone in authority, teachers, police officers, etc., and with people in general. Girlfriends, friends, family, etc. Final one, taking mental issues seriously. My parents made it clear that it's okay to not be okay. They made sure that if I was ever depressed or anything, that I could get help and they would make sure I was okay. When I was struggling with school and middle school, they were the ones who helped me go to the doctor, who then diagnosed me with ADHD. That helped immensely. Having them support me helped me realize that I could overcome whatever challenge I was dealing with, which led to me being able to get off the medication and function perfectly well without it. This attitude also helped me become more sensitive to other people's issues. My friends have anxiety, ADHD, depression, anger management issues, etc. They all know that they can come to me and talk, even if they just want to rant. Remember, kids often emulate their parents. Above all, show unconditional love and support. It won't go unappreciated. In my experience, the inability to keep a conversation light and positive. For example, if I received an A on a test and I brought it up at the dinner table, within 5 minutes, we would be having a tense discussion about some other class I should be doing better in. Or it has turned negative on one of my siblings. Why the heck would I bother bringing something up if it's going to remind you of something you yell about regularly? In the same vein, the inability to withhold more important discussions for another time. My parents never considered planning a sit-down down with me for a serious discussion about something I am doing wrong or did wrong. Rather, they'd spring it on me when I'm trapped in a car with them or at the dinner table or when I'm least expecting it or simply need to be doing something else. Important discussions were simply interjected into everyday life, and it led to me having bad anxiety and the inability to just relax around my parents. This may actually be part of some larger complex I have about my parents not having healthy divisions between themselves and other individuals. Like, they don't respect or acknowledge that their kids are fully separate people who think in different ways. If I was living in a way that disappointed my parents throughout my adult life, they would die young and allow it to take decades of their lives because they are so intertwined in other people's business. They would never think that their adult children deserve the respect of like a coffee date or lunch in order to discuss a big issue. It would just be spewed out at the wrong time. They have no emotional intelligence and are the most judgmental people I've ever met. This is probably going to be buried in the comments, but is so important to me that I'm going to write it anyway. My parents unconsciously taught me to value external validation over everything else, and it has been the cause of persistent depression in my adult life. Examples that seem innocent: praising good grades and emphasizing academic achievement, being inordinately pleased when people said good things about me to them, encouraging me to apply for awards and scholarships, and then being super proud and boastful to others about how amazing I am, tacking up newspaper articles about me, certificates, etc., all over the house, writing Christmas letters that were essentially a laundry list of all my accomplishments, telling me that I could do anything I wanted to or be anything I wanted, that I was exceptional. I think you get the idea. All this taught me that I am only worth what I can do. It has taught me that I am only as valuable as others deem me to be. Outwardly, I appear poised and accomplished and successful. Inwardly, I have an exceedingly low, virtually non-existent sense of self-worth. I push myself constantly to do more and achieve more and earn more accolades. I burn out and have panic attacks. I feel numb inside. I don't know who I am or what I actually enjoy because I've been groomed only to do what others want of me. I am almost 40 and basically completely lost. Never showing up for events. I remember my parents didn't come to most of my chorus concerts. It really sucked to see my classmates' families cheer them on while my parents were absent. I brought home one of my chorus program papers to show my parents, and I found it in the trash the next day. I was sad because I wanted to keep it, but seeing it in the trash, I didn't want it anymore. I love my parents, and I don't blame them for not showing up. They're small business owners, and it was hard for them to find people who could work for them whenever I had concerts or anything. It still hurt though. Also, the replies to this are very sad. I'm sorry that a lot of you guys went through similar experiences. Also, my mom is a clean freak. She'll discard or move any stray papers laying around. She probably didn't think much of it. She might not have even realized what it was. She can't read English all that well. It's her third language. After I told her, she apologized to me, so it's okay. I thought I should add that my little sister and grandma would come to them, but my relationship with my grandma isn't great. It's just not the same as having your parents there, if that makes sense. Flex his fingers. Being overly rigid about table manners to the point of physically correcting how your 19-year-old child is holding a fork over the age of about 12. Timing your children's meals and taking their plates away if they go over time. Mocking them for not knowing how to eat unfamiliar foods correctly. I get an eating disorder. My brother gets an eating disorder. Everyone gets an eating disorder. Spending more time dwelling on how evil and wrong premarital sex, dating, and the gays are than you do on, you are my child and I love you. Good way to make sure your son is fucking his girlfriend, who fortunately knows more about safe sex than he does because you never bothered to teach him. One of daughters has a girlfriend, the other is dating someone older than you are, and they all plan to get married sometime in the next 5 years without inviting or informing you. Using anything they tell you confidentially against them. Want your kids to never trust you or anyone with personal information? Way to go! Making a really big deal out of them displaying behavior you want. Oh wow, look everyone, Nina finally came out of her room. Wow, Nina, I bet that was really hard for you. By 16, Nina comes home only to sleep. The saddest part of this question is that my mom had done so many things that everyone is saying is bad. Not hugging, praising, telling me to suck it up, etc. So let me give one that I feel would have helped me out growing up. Do not be afraid to admit when you are wrong or when you make mistakes to your child. My parents would go out of their way to justify any mistake they made and made it seem as if they were right no matter what the situation was. Gave me a pretty messed up view of right and wrong, as well as learning from mistakes, but was fixed by my grandma. It's a long story that I don't want to get into right now. I want to reiterate the importance of not only advice, but the consequences of not taking said advice. Example, my parents never congratulated me on good grades, doing the right thing, etc. They would only say, "That's what you're supposed to do," or "You better keep it up," and threaten me if I didn't live up to their expectations. So now, as an adult, I'm insanely suspicious and at the same time, worried of people complimenting me or congratulating me for anything I do. My mom quit having her own life the moment my brother and I were born. She was an incredibly devoted and loving mother that was very kind to us. But when we were born, she stopped having friends, did not work, and was home every single day from when I was born to when I moved out in my early 20s. She was very easy to upset because she had no other source of self-esteem, and anytime I screwed up, and I screwed up a lot, it was as if I had levied a very personal attack against her. In the last 5 years or so before I left, I don't think we had a single conversation that didn't drive her to tears, and I promise I wasn't that bad. I constantly felt cornered and stressed and fell into depression as a defense mechanism, and she took my resulting lack of performance very personally, creating a very treacherous cycle that was only broken when I enlisted and finally got away. To this day, I often feel like I'm a bad person who failed to live up to her love. Something that's way too common is acting before understanding why your child did something. Almost every adult has the unconscious misconception that children are evil by nature and need to be sanctioned to get the evilness out of them. So if a child does something bad, a lot of parents automatically, and unconsciously, assume that the child did this on purpose and out of evilness. Then they punish the child because they think they need to teach them that evilness won't be tolerated. There are things children need to learn not to do, but in a lot of cases, parents need to understand that children act the way they act because it's their only option. For example, a kid doesn't scream at their parent because it's evil, but because it's their only chance to mark a border that his parents repeatedly crossed. The problem here is the communication within the family, not the child. So you need to understand the real problem and work on your family's communication. Punishing your child is just an easy way to deal with it, but not a solution. It's always things that are a lot more subtle than you think that can have unexpected and lasting effects. For me, as a child, I was always ahead of my class and my parents always praised my high marks. I never studied to get them. I was able to do it naturally without effort in primary school and a lot of high school. It wasn't until the end of high school and the start of university that I started to see the effects it had on me. I never learned to study properly and never learned how to properly put effort into something to get results. This started to affect my grades, and the straight A's I used to get were dropping to C's and D's. I had to teach myself to study properly to get back to B's. It also made me the bad kind of perfectionist. If I couldn't do something perfectly and get praise for it, then why bother even trying at all? That's been the biggest struggle for me all through my life. Treating crying as if it's something only weak people do. My dad, in particular, used to yell at me for crying, which only made me cry more, which made him yell more, and you get the point. In high school, I tried to bring up the possibility of me having anxiety problems that I'd spoken to the school counselor about, because my friends made me go since they were worried. He told me I was just a drama queen. I can't express that I'm anxious or stressed around my dad because others have it worse. Even now, I'm 21 and seeing a psychiatrist in a couple of weeks because I've just felt so bad lately and I would never let my dad know. I think I'd rather die than let my dad know I've been seeing a psychiatrist and discussing the possibility of me having OCD with said psychiatrist, which does explain a lot and is actually kind of comforting for me to know, because he gets so mad at me for being weak. pretty much telling you that whatever activity that you enjoy doing is annoying or dumb. I used to love to sing. I was in chorus and would play my favorite songs over and over to learn the words. Not only did my sisters tease me for it, but my parents told me to shut up constantly, so I stopped singing. I must have been terrible, right? I sing when I'm alone or jokingly with some friends. What really broke me was when I went to visit everyone for the holidays and my sister said that she was surprised I never pursued singing since I seemed to love it so much when I was younger. I nearly started crying and had to bite my tongue so I wouldn't scream at her for being one of the reasons I stopped. It's always funny for the ones doing the teasing, but it actually hurts the ones being teased, especially when it's coming from people who are supposed to love you. Saying, "I don't care who started it." I grew up with friends whose siblings would target the one with the bad temper, provoke them into a rage, then cry and play victim when they got slapped. In this case, it does matter who started it. A parent has to make it clear that violence isn't okay, but neither is provoking someone into said violence. It doesn't matter that said person never hit or kicked while their sibling did. They never would have gotten hurt in the first place if they didn't encourage the aggression to begin with. Children are clever and will find loopholes in their parents' rules. Parents need to be better and snuff out that kind of bullshit when it starts. If they don't, they'll raise a manipulator and a scapegoat. One will use them and one will resent them. It's a lose-lose, all because of a simple rule. Anyone who is a parent or ever hopes to be a parent, please never tell your child, "I would be so sad if you turned out to be gay, lesbian, or trans." I just came out to my family this year, I'm 21, and my mom cried about how she didn't feel like a good mother because I didn't tell her sooner and told other people. She doesn't even remember that she said that. I, on the other hand, will never forget it. I know this isn't what anyone in the family wanted. Not to throw my mom entirely under the bus, because although it was difficult coming out, she does love and accept me. However, this one single comment, she said this when I was 13 or 14, majorly fueled my fear of coming out to my parents. I thought it would make me a huge disappointment and embarrassment. Giving into your kids' wants and desires without upholding discipline and consequences will give your kids a large uphill battle to climb later. I say this because my parents babied me a lot when I was young. I never had to do anything I didn't want to do. Example, when I started getting bad grades because I wasn't doing my homework, my parents would have conferences with my teachers so they could give me extra credit. I had a rude awakening in college when I realized how hard life is. I 100% love and adore my parents. And who's to say if they did discipline me more that I'd turned out any different? Probably not, but you never know. But when I have kids, I already know a few things I'd do differently. In a different vein of thought, making finances a taboo subject. Financial illiteracy can be devastating once entering adulthood. Want to keep your children from making your own money mistakes? Don't be too proud to teach them what those mistakes were. And to clarify, I don't mean robbing your children of their innocence by putting the weight of your debt on them at an early age, but rather teaching them about how to properly budget their money as they earn it, how to build savings, what credit is, and how to responsibly manage it. Credit utilization, the danger of revolving balances, not using credit as an emergency fund. Teach them about the predatory interest rates and true cost of a loan. Set realistic expectations for costs of living, etc. Not having them do chores. My parents pushed me to be an academic, so doted on me hand and foot as a kid to make more room for study. When you're too young and stupid to know any better, you think it's a blessing. When I moved out to uni, I didn't really know how to clean, when to clean, what to clean with, how to wash clothes, how to get them dry, etc. The only thing I could do is cook and binge drink. That's no way to bring up a kid, and it's a steep learning curve doing all that stuff for the first time in your early 20s. It sounds like a super lame answer, but make sure every kid does their fair share of chores. Continuing to tickle your children after they ask you to stop. My dad and older brother would tickle me as a child to the point that I peed my pants, despite me begging them to stop. It started as young as I can remember and didn't stop until I was around 10. I was laughing because it tickled, not because I liked it, and I meant it when I told them no, but they would keep going anyways. I now hate being tickled and have serious issues saying no when I am uncomfortable and maintaining my own physical boundaries. Teach your children their language is powerful. When they say no, even if it's playful, listen to them. Physical punishment and getting overly angry with your children. My brother, 4, is having issues with getting fully potty trained, and my dad's response is to spank him every time he doesn't use the bathroom, and he tries to scare him into using the toilet by screaming at him while he's on it. My dad doesn't seem to realize all this is doing is traumatizing my brother, making it even harder for him to use the restroom. Any attempt to broach the topic with my dad is met with anger towards me, and he doesn't seem to take into account that this is literally my area of study, developmental psychology. This might not be a major fuck up, but it's something to think about. Growing up, I was blonde, blue-eyed, tall for my age, all the curves where you want them. I was always called pretty and beautiful. My body self-image is awesome. Even now when I'm overweight, I'll still swim in a swimsuit with no confidence issues. My sister is brunette, brown-eyed, buck teeth, also tall, but tended to hunch a little. She rarely got the body-affirming feedback that I used to get. She never put on the weight I did, but even now, she remains mostly covered up and hides her beautiful figure away unnecessarily. Creating an environment where you tell your kid their feelings aren't valid just because they aren't the same as yours, or your kid processes their emotions differently than you. Angrily telling your kid they are too sensitive, dramatic, theatrical, hormonal, etc. is just going to mess your kid up and encourage them to bottle emotions up to avoid upsetting you, and is going to lead to major communication issues. Also, constantly pushing an intelligent or self-motivated child to work harder and do better. You're setting your kid up to be a perfectionist, which can be incredibly damaging to his or her mental health in the long run. In my personal opinion, spanking kids, or as some call it, whooping their ass. I feel like if you want to teach them that violence is not okay, spanking them for something they did wrong is only contradicting that. It teaches them that you can get someone to do or not do something with spanking or physical punishments. When my dad hit me for the first time, and he only did it like twice, I didn't just not do what I had done. I was scared of him for a long time after that. Every time my brother annoyed me, I would resort to violence. When I was 4, my parents adopted a kitten. Of course, I had never seen anything quite so delightful before, and I could barely keep my hands off the little fur ball. So about 2 or 3 days passed. I get up in the morning and walk out and ask, "Where is the kitten?" And my parents told me that he died, implying that my roughhousing had killed it. I was terrified to touch an animal for several years thereafter. In fact, they had simply given the kitten back to the people they got it from.